Hello gamers, like a phoenix or any CW character in a TV show, I have arisen from the dead. Now you may be wondering, why have I arisen from the dead? Well, obviously to talk about the most recent game I have played through, the semi-new game Atomic Heart. Atomic Heart is a first-person shooter story-driven game that's kind of open world, kind of RPG-y. So what better place to start than talking about a first-person shooter game and then the shooting and melee combat. The guns in this game feel pretty good. Not the best ever, obviously, but they feel all around pretty good and they do some damage when you shoot the robots. You can like dismember robots, which is pretty cool. The game I'm going to be playing next, you should be able to dismember things, but hey. So yeah, I really do have no complaints about shooting. The guns are pretty cool, the guns you expect to have. You got a pistol, you have an AK-47 because the game takes place in the Soviet Union, and of course you have an AK-47. Then the game also highly features melee combat, which is by far the worst factor in this game. So if you exclude melee combat, the worst thing in this game is probably like a mid-tier sort of thing. The melee combat, oh boys, at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, this combat sucks. Your weapons feel like they do absolutely no damage. It's hard to tell if you're even going to hit the enemy directly in front of you. It's just not very well done, if I have to say so myself. Of course, luckily you can still go to shooting. Also, you have a glove that gives you access to certain abilities, like the ability to shock enemies, freeze enemies, or like throw them up in the air with telekinesis. So you can avoid melee until you run out of ammo, which happened a couple of times for me. And then the game just becomes miserable. But that's enough about combat, because I could literally talk about how shit melee is for about another 3 minutes, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stop myself here and we're going to move on to the world building and like the map and the graphics and stuff. So this game takes place in the Soviet Union in the 1950s in a world where the Soviet Union won the Second World War. Now you may be saying to yourselves, Mr. Voice from the video, the Soviets did win the Second World War. You would be correct. Apart from this time, I don't know if this is exact law, but let's say they stole all the Nazi scientists and they had a massive technological revolution, even bigger than the one the US had. To the point where they now have robot servants, floating cities, like floating up in the clouds. They got advanced machinery. They got underwater cities. They got subterranean bases. They have absolutely everything. Some could say it's a utopian setting, but of course this is a video game. And any video game that claims to take place in a utopia, that quickly turns to a dystopia now, doesn't it? But we'll save how that happens when we get to the story part of this video. For now, we're going to move on to the graphics. This game looks absolutely stunning. I had the occasional graphical bug, but it didn't really affect it. The only main bug I had an issue didn't affect the graphics. It's just like the game freezing when I was in elevators, which was weird, but I've chosen to ignore it. But yes, this is probably one of the more stunning environments for a game that takes place in this era. And it also looks realistic. If you told me the Soviets had robots, this is how I would imagine they would build their cities. Very, I don't know, what would you call it? Communist chic, I guess? I don't know. But it's a beautiful looking game. The only possible downside is that you spend a little bit too much time in the before mentioned subterranean bases. You're never really in a building with windows that allow you to look out over a massive, beautiful valley where the facility is. By the way, the name of the main place is like facility, a bunch of numbers. That's like the main city, so if I ever mention the facility, I'm referring to that and not just like one building. Now, onto the story of Atomic Heart. The story starts as you, the main character, Agent P3, making his way down a canal in one of the many floating cities of Facility 3826. Finding out that his current objective is to go to a robot place. Well, they're all robot places. But to go get some upgrades to his glove. And then he must go see the big boss of the whole facility, Dr. Sechenov, who then gives you a mission to go investigate the ground where the robot construction and research facilities are. Which this is where the main part of the story starts. The robots are rebelling. They've been put into combat mode. So you must obviously fight your way through the facility to try to figure out what has happened to the robots and find the man that Dr. Sechenov, your boss, believes is responsible, a man by the name of Petrov. Now, throughout all this, Sechenov is having problems with the heads of the Soviet Union back in Moscow, which ends up with a character by the name of Konrad Molotov showing up. Yes, that's his actual name. Well, he says he's got to go to the facility to find out what's wrong. Of course, no one knows that the robots are in combat mode. It's only in this location at the current time. So, of course, you have to go to this place to try to stop them. And then Mr. Molotov himself meets you there. And then he dies. And then the twins show up. We all love the twins. They're great. Left and right. Very good. Am I right, boys? No, I'm not. But hey, that's okay. And then the rest of the game is you tracing down Petrov. You go to 2 different locations to chase him down. You eventually get him and you kill him. Well, you don't kill him. He kills himself in front of you. But right before he does, he starts to put some doubts in your head. And then you take his decapitated head to a different facility so they can get the polymer from his brain. Polymer, by the way, is the big scientific breakthrough the Soviets made that has allowed them to become so much more advanced than Western civilization. And then while you're at this facility, Petrov's girlfriend / ex-girlfriend throws a grenade at you and the people you're there with. Of course, you survive. Everyone else dies. But then she tells you to meet her at a lighthouse, which then turns out to be a massive base for the launch of Collective. Or a massive base for subjects who are experimented on for Collective. Collective is obviously the big thing that Dr. Sechenov is launching in a couple days. It's basically something that will allow you to tell robots what to do without telling them. Like, you can control robots with your mind. And then, of course, it also turns out that this is all the work of a big bad man. It might be Dr. Sechenov. You're not too sure. You think it is, though. And they show you a bunch of human zombies, basically. Not actual zombies, but people whose minds have left their body. Then, of course, you black out. You don't know what happens for a little bit. But then you're on an airship with an old lady who is somehow your mother-in-law. I'm not too sure. But you are left with 2 options. Retire. Just leave the Soviet Union. Or maybe not the Soviet Union, but just leave Facility 3826 and just vacation. Never come back. Or you can end it all right there and now and go kill Dr. Sechenov. Of course, I chose kill Dr. Sechenov, which lets you... They have a big boss fight, which is fighting the twins. However, the twins are not twins. The twins are apparently your dead wife. But apparently she was too damaged to be saved, like you were in an explosion. But you were saved, obviously. So her left and right brain were put into each twin. I don't know if that's how it works. Like, you put hemispheres in each of the brain, but they all act the exact same. I'm not a neurosurgeon, obviously. Yeah, and then you kill the twins in a pretty good boss fight. The boss fights in this game are obviously amazing. I don't know if I've said that before, but I love them. It's the one thing that's really good about this game is the boss fights. And of course, you shoot Dr. Sechenov, and then the big twist, your glove. The artificial AI is not artificial AI. It is a human whose brain was put into Collective. It was Dr. Sechenov's colleague. And then he comes out of your glove, wiggles his way over to a vat of the polymer thing, and then becomes a polymer humanoid creature thing. And then the game ends. Well, he kills Dr. Sechenov, and then the game ends. And then you get like news clippets that this blob is taking over the Soviet Union or the world. I'm not too sure. The story's a little bit choppy towards the end on what's actually happening. But I would say for this game, the story overall is very good. Is it great? Probably not. But it did have a very strong premise going into the game. That obviously being the Soviet Union winning the war, which they did win. I think I mentioned that before. They definitely won the Second World War. But they got a massive technological boost afterwards, to the point where they're even exporting robots to the United States and other countries, even though those countries have sanctions on them. Not too sure how that works, but hey, I'm not a politician or a roboticist. That's not a real word. Anyway, so there's been a quick review on my thoughts of Atomic Heart. Basically, game pretty good. Graphics amazing. Gun combat pretty good. Melee absolutely trash. Spit on it. Story, it's okay. Could have been better. Definitely could have been worse though. Overall, pretty good. So if you guys have enjoyed, maybe subscribe, maybe like, I don't know. That's up to you. I'll see you around in the next game that won't have dismemberment, even though this game did and that game should have.